turn it up. Yeah. Clock eyes, Uncle Dave.
It's a dynasty. It's a dynasty. It's a dynasty. It's a dynasty. Hey, let's talk what moves to do, who to trade for who. Get your fantasy stats and the place to boot. Get the plans for the draft and the major clues. With the home Sean, Joey, and Andrew, Dan Dudes got the hot takes. Every stop place, not base, plot cases, man. Hit the streams of fate, talking teams and plays. But let's get to the show, man. See you later.
All right, welcome back to Dynasty Football Digest. My name is Sean. You can find me on Twitter at Lanny1925. I'm here with my regular co-host Andrew.
Hey, you can find me at BiddyCentFF.
And we are joined by Todd today.
Hey, you can find me at FF_Banterman.
Sure. And Todd, you want to tell us, before we get kicked off with some more wide receivers this week, you want to tell us a little bit about what you do at the website, if you're working on anything specific, anything like that?
Yeah, so what I do at the website, I'm one of the writers, one of the newer writers. What I've been trying to really focus on is a lot of, like, because we're talking about rookie wide receivers, I've been talking about the other side with the veteran piece, you know, like buying low into veterans, you know, guys with a value. So last article I did Julio Jones and Keenan Allen, who I believe are pretty, given what their production is, the value and the price is right for those kind of guys that have wide receiver upside. So for the next time, I'm going into wide receiver twos, and be on the lookout for that. I actually finished it today. I just got to put it into WordPress and play around with some stuff.
So Keenan Allen, I think, has been on my buy low list for the last 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, he never gets respect, you know. And so I do a podcast with called Tale of Two Rivals and all that, when we talked about Keenan Allen, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's his touchdown problem." I go, "He gets 6 for the last 3 years. He's consistently scoring. You know, maybe he might not be getting 10, but you don't chase touchdowns. You know,
no, it's too inconsistent. It's week to week.
Yeah.
It's season to season. You just don't know, and he just gets volume, man. So
yeah,
I'm a huge Keenan Allen guy. He was always one of my favorites at the beginning of round 3. You know.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to talk some more wide receiver landing spots. We're going to kick it off with KJ Hamler to the Broncos. Andrew, I know you have some strong feelings on this one.
I don't know if I have strong feelings. I mean, we talked about him in our pre-draft show. He's a guy that I think I like the tape on him quite a bit. You know, I think he's got a very particular skill set. I think he's got some limitations in his game as well. And I think that the Broncos aren't a terrible spot for him in the sense that they've got a couple of the guys with maybe more refined, more well-rounded games in terms of Judy and Sutton, but so that can let him fill that niche that he can fill quite effectively, and not ask him to do more than he's capable of. We talked at length with about Locke and the potential limitations in the passing game there, but I'm not totally out on Locke. I'm not totally convinced yet either, right? And so I think there's opportunity there for him. To me, he's still like a late round dart throw, though, because I don't think that I'm convinced enough that there's enough volume to feed three guys there, and I think if not, he's going to be the guy left out. So I don't think it's the best spot, but it's okay. It's got potential.
Todd, any thoughts on Hamler?
I agree. I mean, I think he fell into a good spot for what his role is supposed to be in an offense. You know, I think obviously being behind Sutton and Judy just maxes what his ceiling is, but he has a really good floor and playing in a role. And I love his tape too. I didn't love the landing spot from a fantasy aspect, but in scheme, he actually probably will see touches, and, we'll see what Luck can do, but he's going to be a guy that's going to command the middle of the field, So, I mean, he's a good stash, to see what happens. And if you're looking for him to have steady 2020 production, then that might be a reach,
Yeah, and I think right now his ADP is not showing the limitations that he has in that offense. He's going early, mid, second round. And I think that's largely just because he does have kind of that defined role where you have the technician in Judy, you have the bigger bodied receiver in Sutton, and then you've got just pure speed from Hamler. So there is a very well-defined role for him there, but I don't know how valuable that is on a week-to-week basis. To be honest, I like him a lot more in best ball than I do in Dynasty, just because I think he's going to have those games where, you know, he catches a deep ball or, you know, he takes a slant 60 yards and like that's going to be great for fantasy, but you can't predict that. You have no idea how that's going to work. And on top of that, like he always struck me as more of a slot wide receiver. And I think Judy is the same, where Judy can play outside for sure. But I think he thrives best out of the slot because it gives him the two-way go. It gives him a little more of an advantage with his route running. So I don't know that those two necessarily pair as well together as what you would expect in terms of like what their roles should be in the offense, just because I think they do both excel out of the slot. So he's somebody that I've ended up with a few shares of him when he starts falling to like the late second, just because I feel a lot better about him than some of these other guys that we're going to talk about probably next week that I think are being drafted around his area. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not super excited about it, but he should see the field, which is good.
Right.
Moving on to Chase Claypool. Andrew, I know you're a big Chase Claypool fan.
So I think I was a much bigger Chase Claypool fan before the draft, because I think that, you know, I was a big fan of him being moved to tight end, and I just don't think that's necessarily going to be the case in Pittsburgh. I think they actually drafted him to play wide receiver, which I think caps a significant amount of his fantasy value because, you know, the potential of him moving to tight end was just so appealing, and so like just was going to unlock so much fantasy potential. Not that I don't think he's going to have any success as a wide receiver in the NFL, but I think you know the relative success, the success relative to the position is the expectations are much different, right? If you have 800 yards and 8 touchdowns as a tight end, like wow, like you're helping us out. But as a wide receiver, it's like okay, you're like a back end 2, maybe wide receiver 3, right? So, you know, in not that Pittsburgh obviously does have potential to be a prolific passing offense, and there's still certainly is volume there to be had because of the uncertainty in their wide receiver core. I mean, they've got a lot of talent, but there's some big question marks after last year, especially, you know, the future of Big Ben, because that passing game looked atrocious without him. So I don't know. I was much a bigger fan. I got a lot more Claypool on my team in drafts that occurred before the draft than I got in leagues that drafted after the draft. So
yeah, I just don't like Chase Claypool. I don't think he's a good wide receiver.
I don't
because he's Canadian.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's like it's just a bad sign, you know. Like if you're Canadian, you're probably not going to be good at football, right?
Well, I mean, Canadian football.
Defend your people.
he would dominate the CFL, man. It'd be you put him on skates.
That's true.
For me, like he's a really good size, speed, physical specimen, but I just don't think there's a whole lot he does well as an actual wide receiver compared to other wide receiver prospects. And for me, like he's not as good at what Juju does. He's not as good at what Deontay Johnson does. And I don't know that Pittsburgh needs anybody with his skill set there.
Yeah.
I don't know that they do.
The guy you also didn't mention, I don't think he's better than James Washington. You know, I think James Washington is the guy that I'm a big fan of stretching the field. I think that's the guy.
I hate James Washington. But,
that's totally fine, man. I hate Chase Claypool probably about the same amount. The other thing about Chase Claypool is like he was always a measurables guy, like with the athleticism when it came out with that. Yeah. There was no production in Notre Dame. If he was supposed to be so good, why didn't he dominate? You know what I mean? That was like my big thing with Claypool. You never really saw the production in college to match the hype. And anytime I used to see one of those splits between him and Calvin Johnson because of the measurements, that just drove me nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, the next Calvin Johnson.
Nuts.
Yeah,
who was the quarterback?
Both got that comparison.
Who's the quarterback at Notre Dame this year?
Ian Brook.
Who?
Ian Brook. Right?
I have no idea.
Hey, Ian Brook.
As it turns out, Andrew, most quarterbacks don't go to the NFL, and you probably haven't heard of them. So this is not a unique excuse for Chase Claypool.
But I knew it. Yeah. Ian Brooks was supposed to be pretty decent, but he's not going to be a pro now.
One of my biggest botches, I've either told this on this podcast or IDP guys, was with James Washington. I really disliked him as a prospect coming out of college. So I had 0 shares. Anytime I end up with 0 shares of a guy and then they have like a down year one, I try and go out and buy like a share or 2 on a discount, just to hedge my bets a little bit. Mostly because of my failure with Juju. That was kind of what spurned this. So I go out and I send out a bunch of offers for James Washington across a bunch of my leagues, just like thinking I'm lowballing. And then I wake up the next morning and I suddenly have like 9 shares of James Washington. And I'm just like motherfucker, no. So since then, James Washington has been on the trade block in every single one of my leagues, and I've had no takers. So, I have a special beef with him.
When you say low ball, what are you giving up for him in these leagues?
It was like an early 3rd or late 2nd, depending on that.
That's kind of what his value's at, I guess. You know what I mean?
That's where it's at now after a second down year. Yeah, but
right. Yeah.
At the time, it felt like a low ball.
Right.
So I was not a fan of that whole sequence. But all right, real quick before we take a break, let's talk Van Jefferson to the Rams. Anybody really like this landing spot? What do we think?
I think it's a good landing spot. I don't like the player. That's more what it boils down to. Is like their number 1 wide receiver left, so there's targets there. I think the other thing that makes me not like it as much is Akers going there, because I think Akers is going to, he's a good receiving back. I think he's going to get some targets too. So you already have 2 good receivers there. You brought in a good receiving back. I'm not a big fan of Jefferson, but they use capital on him. So yeah, it's okay.
I'm not like super down on his skill set. I'm definitely down on the metrics for him. His analytics are terrible. But he definitely showed talent and stuff. And I think that his route running was really good. He made some really nice catches through traffic. I don't know what his fit is there though. Cause I guess I don't know what he does differently or better than Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods. And I think that it's kind of a very similar skill set. And I think he thrives out of the slot. And I'm pretty convinced Cooper Kupp just can't succeed outside the slot. I'd have to look up the numbers on that. It might be against man coverage that he struggles against. I know that's a thing. But I was looking at the numbers on Cooper Kupp, and it's like some really bizarre splits. But I just think Cooper Kupp has such a specific role that Van Jefferson is going to have such a limited opportunity without being a detriment to Kupp. So, I really wasn't a big fan of this landing spot. And I also just think they struggled to support 3 wide receivers full time last year, and it wasn't that they didn't have good seasons in the end. It was just week to week, there was inconsistency, and you don't really want that with a rookie. You want them to have a well-defined role with a lot of volume. And I just think that that's not where Van Jefferson is. And I don't think that's the type of player he is. Andrew's obviously thinking about things here, so let's let him think for a second.
No, so I was gonna say the Cooper Kupp thing. So what I remember reading, and again, I could be mistaken, but it wasn't so much that he struggled versus man, is that he saw the lowest rate of man-to-man coverage in the league last year, something like that.
It was 81% zone or something like that.
Yeah, it was something silly. And so he thrived against the zone. He just ate. I don't remember seeing him struggle versus man, but again, I could be mistaken on that. But for sure he does. He's an extremely talented slot wide receiver. I don't know that he can't play outside, but I don't know why you would play him outside if you're going 3 wide, which prior to I think the second half of last year, the Rams ran a ton of 3 wide, right? And they were able to use them in the slot. My understanding about the change in their offense last year is that they switched to a lot of is it 12 or 21 personnel? Anyway,
12.
Just 2 wide receivers on the field, right? They're using more 2 tight end sets, and so that to me is concerning as a believer in Cooper Kupp, because he saw his snap counts go down quite a bit down the stretch last year. I agree with you what you said about Jefferson, projecting to the slot, because I believe that's where he projects. And I think that a lot of what we liked about his tape was the fact that he was an older, mature and polished receiver in college. Like, he was a guy that his dad is a wide receivers coach in the NFL, as an NFL wide receiver. He was extremely well coached and a little bit older, so he was more mature physically. So he was able to sort of take advantage of some of the younger, less experienced college players, right? So I don't think that he projects the best to the NFL level. But I do agree that his skill set, being sort of that, polished, refined runner, projects well to the slot. I don't think he's better than Kupp in the slot. And so I don't know if they're gonna continue to run more 12 personnel, or if they're gonna go with 11. I don't know. That's the big question for me for that team this year, is because McVay was sort of like, he I don't want to say he made his name, but his breakout year with the Rams 2 years ago, they ran 11 at like a league high rate, and that was, they were given a lot of credit for that being a secret to their success. So for them to morph down the stretch last year into running more 12, I don't know if that's a permanent change, or if that was just something that they were doing given the personnel they had at the time. So if they do go 11, I think they can easily support three wide receivers. And if Jefferson's the third, then it's a great opportunity for him. It's to me, it's a wait and see situation. I don't love it, but I could see ways that could work out for him.
Sure. All right, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back to kick it off with Denzel Mims.
Are you ready to take your fantasy draft to the next level? Order your rookie draft guide today, covering 122 rookie prospects in both IDP and offense. A collaboration between your favorite analysts. Pre-order at idpguys.org and dynastyfootballdigest.com.
All right, Denzel Mims. I really like this landing spot, despite Sam Darnold. I think that there's just a ton of volume available here, and I think the Jets are probably going to be trailing in games this year, and I don't know that there's anybody else that I would consider an alpha on that team right now. So, thoughts on Denzel Mims in New York?
I avoid anything to do with Gase with passion. I'm one of those people. So hopefully he gets fired, and then Mims is great. I think that's probably a reality. So yeah, I mean, I loved Mims, and then when he landed with the Jets, it's like, oh, terrible. So like, it's not really a guy that I'm like, the landing spot's terrible for 2020, but if they get a coaching change, then you're right. He could be the alpha, and he's a great pickup. He slipped a lot in drafts because of landing to the Jets, So, I think it's more of a wait and see to see if they actually get a decent coach,
So for me, Jamal Adams leaving or trying to leave and citing Adam Gase as the issue, like, the writing's on the wall there, man.
Yeah.
Like, Adam Gase should have never got this shot. I think they realized it was a mistake from his first press conference. So I just, I can't see Adam Gase being there beyond this year. And either way, you're going to have three years, I think, with the Jets. So if Gase is gone, you get 2 more years, and then, yeah. So I guess, there's a good chance that he struggles year 1 in the offense, and then you get a buy low window year 2, and I'm totally down for that too. But I really like the talent, and I think there's a massive void in talent at the wide receiver. I mean, just pass catching position over in New York. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And I think that we've seen that wide receivers who just get volume can still succeed even if the offense sucks.
Right. No, absolutely. This is just, I get triggered by Gase, man. Anything to do with Gase.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's
bad.
I've been burned
so
before.
bad.
I've learned my lesson. Once that's over, I'll feel differently. I'll go pay later.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like you said, I'll go pay later. You know?
Once it's over, though, the price is going to go up. You know that as soon as Gase leaves that team, everybody's price is skyrocketing. Everyone's going to just, like, it doesn't even matter who the next coach is. It's not Gase, so price is skyrocketing.
Right. So, it makes me know, Todd, who's your team?
Who's my team? I'm a Pats fan. I'm a diehard Pats
Oh,
fan.
okay.
Yeah.
And Sean let you come on?
I wasn't asked, you know? Yeah.
We didn't
advertise that.
Yeah, I have very mixed feelings about Cam Newton, but don't get me started. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my thoughts on Mims are I loved his film. He's one of my favorite receivers pre-draft. And in terms of like opportunity, I mean, you couldn't ask for better, like a more devoid talent pool to compete against. And I'm a big fan of Darnold as well. Like I don't know that everybody's a believer, but I really think he's going to become like a legitimate, NFL quarterback. But yeah, like it's not the offense is such a hot mess. I'm on board with you guys in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
So, just to get a gauge here, what is the earliest pick you would use to take Denzel Mims? Let's start with Andrew because I think he probably would go the earliest.
I would probably have a hard time passing him up in the middle of the second. So like 2-5, I would say, in like a 12-team league, probably 2-5, probably the earliest. I'm probably looking for him more in like the 2-6 to 2-8 range. So
I don't think he's fallen there.
I haven't gotten him. Now, I never had any picks in all my drafts this year. I had some early seconds and I had a bunch of late seconds. I never had any mids, but I never got them.
Yeah,
you went 209 in our draft. In our
really?
Oh, really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I got him. Yeah. I got him in some of the leagues that we drafted rookies with the startup.
Yep.
I got him in some of those pre NFL draft, but none of the rookie drafts.
Yeah.
I got him in a good number of those. I overdrafted him a little bit just to piss off Joey. Because I'd start to get the feel for it. I'd be like, all right, Joey's going Mims here pretty soon. I should probably just take him now. And then I'd take him and he'd throw a hissy fit and hit me in the DMs. He's like, what do you want for him? like you don't want to pay it, Joey. But I think we all. Todd, you liked Mims' tape, right?
Yeah, I love this tape. So, like, for me, for pick, it'd be in a 1 QB to, like, 206, 207 range, and then probably about 2 spots back in Superflex because, for me, there's just some running backs with some nice potential for, like, what the role could be in 2021 for cheap for 20. And first, like,
sure.
It's just about – there's so much depth at wide receiver that, I'd rather roll some dice on A.J. Dillon if he's there. You know what I mean?
Oh, God.
And yeah. Hey man,
I did not screen you properly at all. This isn't an AJ Dillon hate show.
That's totally. I actually saw him play in high school and he was phenomenal. So
I believe that when you're that big and that fast, you're gonna be phenomenal in high school.
He stiff armed a guy and threw him across his body without breaking stride. I'm like, yeah, he's pretty good. But no, it's more just about I just don't see them paying Jones, and then he's just falling into an opportunity. You know what I mean? So like, I'd rather buy cheaper on a running back than a wide. That's pretty much all it is in the second round. Or and the other thing too is like, I'm still stuck in the succubus. He's still with Gase.
Yeah,
Todd,
no, that's fair.
Todd, I gotta send you some of my film. Me playing pick up the local neighborhood kids. Some of the stiff arms are just vicious.
Oh, I believe it, man. I'm more of a spin move kind of a guy, like I just jab and then my agility's like Cooper Cuff level.
So when you say the neighborhood kids, do you mean children?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Over or under 12? Over under 12?
I'm also absolutely joking. We're not allowed to play contact sports. It's like COVID season.
But if you were.
If you were, you'd be stiff-arming the hell out of those
Oh,
children.
man.
You're like the living embodiment of that Michael Jordan meme that just says, fuck them kids.
That's amazing. That's great.
All right. Lynn Bowden, Las Vegas Raiders. What do we think here, guys?
Love it. Love him. I think that he just fits John Gruden, man. John Gruden just loves those intangibles, those football guys, you know. And Lynn Bowden can play 3 positions. I mean, he's not going to play quarterback in the NFL, but I mean, what he did in the SEC was impressive. He's a heck of an athlete. I think that he's a versatile weapon. I think that they'll find a way for him to work as a receiving back, play in the slot, be a gadget guy. You know, I love the landing spot. I think that he's going to fit in really well with that team.
What concerns me here is Hunter Renfro, because I think he would thrive in the receiving back / Hunter Renfro role. And I think as long as Hunter Renfro's on that team, he doesn't get into the slot unless it's 4 wide receiver sets. And then you got Josh Jacobs, who's no slouch catching the football either. Like last year, they didn't really throw to him, but I love him as a player. He was one of my huge draft crushes. One of my favorite players in this draft class. Where does he carve out a role, though?
I think the main thing is the receiving back. That's for me, is the receiving back, but I think he's a rotational wide receiver. If he can find multiple ways to find on the field, that just means multiple opportunities to get volume. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't play just one spot. That's what I find attractive to him. And also he's got that slash that could be coming with the versatility and how you can use him in your lineups, you know?
Sure. Andrew, you're thinking, go ahead.
My biggest concern, and this comes up every time we talk about the Raiders, is so I wasn't an NFL fan in Gruden's previous stint as an NFL head coach. I got into it after that. And so I don't know. I don't maybe have this reverence for him that a lot of people seem to have. It was an offensive mind. I haven't seen this this sort of creative genius that I hear about him being. To me, and maybe it's a limitation of personnel. Absolutely could be, but I just don't see the creative genius that he's going to, find a role for this, extremely talented, but, sort of gadgety player. I just don't see that. I feel like he's been very vanilla in terms of his running game scheme. I don't think he's really done anything particularly, creative in that regard. The most creative thing I think he seems to have done is he's been using Darren Waller, a tight end, as more of an outside receiver, which I mean, it's not that outside of the box. Like, I just like when I think of creative minds in terms of offensive minds, I think of we were just talking about him in LA.
You don't think about anything, do you?
Sean
McVay,
thank you, and Shanahan. Like those are the guys that I think of. There's a couple other guys that maybe are kind of coming, but like,
don't you dare leave Andy Reid out of this.
Oh, Andy Reid, obviously, but he's the outlier because he's the old school guy in terms of like he's an older coach, but he's not afraid of like adapting and creating and I saw a great meme on Twitter earlier. It was like passing to running backs is an inefficient use of a down unless you're Andy Reid, because his like efficiency ratings in terms of passes to running backs, it's like head and shoulders above any other like team in the NFL. I wish I could credit the source for that. I'll try to look it up and get credit, but it was I don't have this reverence for Gruden's offensive creativity. So I think he's probably going to be, and I hate to say it, like Cordero Patterson is all potential, no production. Or who's the other guy we was talking about? Tavon Austin.
Tavon Austin.
Yeah. All
do
potential.
not bring him up in my province.
I don't know, man. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but that's just I'm terrified of that. So.
See, for me, it wasn't about Gruden's creativity. He just gets really hung up on like intangibles with guys. Like he's a very emotional coach, and I feel like he's going to look at Lynn Bowden and see what kind of competitor he is. He's going to do everything he can to get him on the field. You know, not to mention he's a phenomenal athlete. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I want to go and clear that I do not think John Gruden is a genius of offense.
Okay.
And I also want to point out that Josh McDaniels' name did not get dropped once in that conversation, and you're all haters.
No, he's trash. But
count the rings, dude.
So as usual,
he's going in the Colts Ring of Honor.
As usual, I kind of struggled listening through Biddy's little segment there because I'm not sure that anybody considers Gruden an offensive mastermind.
Okay.
I just like.
I'm not talking to you guys specifically. I'm talking like general perception that I see people talking about.
Yeah, I guess.
I get it.
I guess that's never been a narrative that I've seen there, but sure. So yeah, we're gonna take a short break, and then we got a couple guys left that we're gonna try and get to before we call it a day.
Dynasty Football Digest, your new essential site for Dynasty information. For as little as $1 a month, gain access to all that we have to offer. Rankings, trends, ADP, in-season assets, and a Slack chat just for subscribers. Purchase today at dynastyfootballdigest.com.
All right, moving on to the other Las Vegas Raider, Bryan Edwards. Andrew, you hated Bryan Edwards, right?
No, I loved him. I liked him way more than you guys did.
I don't think so.
Yep, 100%.
I don't think so. All right, well, apparently
I liked him more than
Bryan Edwards.
I liked him more than T. Higgins, that's for sure.
Yeah, everyone hates T. Higgins, though. He's terrible. Bryan Edwards, go ahead. Give us your rundown. How do you feel about
Todd looks confused. Todd appears to not hate T. Higgins.
You guys hate talent? You guys hate talent?
All right, Todd, you don't get to have opinions on this anymore. Andrew, Bryan Edwards, going to the Las Vegas Raiders, led by offensive mastermind John Gruden. What do you have to say?
See, I think he fits Gruden's scheme perfectly because I think he's much more of a traditional wide receiver. I don't think that there's anything particularly, unique about his skill set. I think he's very talented. I think he's, he's an adequate route runner. He's, big and physical. And is it because I said route and not route?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I think he's going to be the volume guy in that offense because, he's the intermediate level receiving threat that I think, maybe not plays to Derek Carr's strength because, he's probably going to be about 5 yards downfield from where Carr wants to throw the ball. But I think that if Carr can loosen up a little bit and throw some 10-yard passes, then Edwards can thrive.
All right, Todd, we'll let you speak despite your terrible T. Higgins and AJ Dillon opinions, and also being a Pats fan. Todd, do you have things to say about Bryan Edwards that are hopefully better than your T. Higgins and AJ Dillon opinions?
Thank you so much for kicking to me with that introduction. I feel so loved. I love Edwards. Breakout age, the kid that was breakout age around 17. That's insane, man. I mean, he was very, very productive in the SEC. The other thing too is like he was productive when Debo was there too. I mean, and he was able to get targets with that. So whenever talent was surrounded with him, he still was productive. So route tree's there. He's a great athlete. I actually wouldn't be surprised if he outproduces Henry Ruggs in the long run. So I really, really, really like Edwards a lot. So
yeah, his analytics were really good. He was top 5 wide receiver on the wide receiver model, which I don't use to rank, but it's more a pass fail, and he was definitely one of the passes this year. So I don't know. I'd definitely paid attention to that. Analytics were great. His tape was good. Landing spot, I think he fits the Raiders pretty well. So yeah, I like Edwards a lot, and he's somebody that I'm getting a good number of shares of because he's slipping a little bit. Because he's just not a super exciting prospect, like he doesn't flash anything like spectacular. He's just like solid. So yeah, I think that's kind of working to his fans' benefits because he's just falling further than where I think he should go. One of my favorite prospects and one of the guys I thought was one of the most underrated in the draft process, Devin Duvernay. I absolutely love Devin Duvernay's game. I think the Ravens is a fantastic spot for him. I think his skill set fits them really, really well. I think he can be a volume receiver there. I think he can play out of the slot. He's really physical after the catch. He's tough to bring down. I think they can work a short passing game where they just feed him the ball and let him run. He reminds me a ton of Deebo Samuel last year. And I think that, just a lot of my evaluation points were very similar between him and Deebo, and I had Deebo as the 103 last year. So I think the fact that I have him a little further down is definitely speaking to the depth of this class compared to last year. But I love the fit. Like, I think that the Ravens is honestly almost a perfect fit for him.
I love the fit too. Duvernay in the middle. Like, the other thing too is Lamar Jackson becoming a more efficient passer. Like, they're going to be looking to just keeping him efficient, and Duvernay is the perfect fit out of the slot for that team. I agree with you. Duvernay is just low because of the depth of talent here, so I absolutely thought that was the ideal landing spot for him. I think 2020, you're not going to see those big numbers, but 2021 is when he's got a year in the system. He gets used to being in his role. I think that's when you're really going to start seeing some spikes. Are you okay with me liking Duvernay because of you don't like the rest of my takes?
Yeah.
Does that make you second guess yourself at all?
Duvernay's exciting.
Just checking. All right.
I kind of project Duvernay somewhere between like Hunter Renfro and Deebo in terms of production this year. I think that's kind of where he ends up. Where Renfro definitely had his weeks and stuff, but it was very inconsistent, and Deebo was a far more consistent player last year. So I think he kind of ends up somewhere in the middle there. But I think long term, that's a great fit for him.
Yep.
I'm just going to disagree with one thing. Renfro was extremely consistent. The first half of the season, he consistently sucked. And in the second half of the season, he actually played extremely well. He was consistent week to week. He went on a 6-game stretch where he had 5 catches and 60 yards in the second half of the season. He had a really good second half.
That was one of those things that was so strange to me because I tuned in for that opening week Raiders game because I wanted to see, Renfro and Josh Jacobs. And it was just those first couple of weeks, it was every time Renfro's on the field, he's doing good things. Throw him the football. Why are we not funneling the offense to him right now? Because there's nothing else here. That's points against the Gruden mastermind. But at least he got it figured out in the end.
Just with regards to Duvernay, I didn't actually talk about Duvernay at all there. I only talked about Renfro. I like the fit. I don't love it as much as you guys, and I think this is wise because last year you said he can be volume play, and last year they were not a volume passing offense, and so I think that is the next step for Lamar to take is to settle for the 5-yard pass as opposed to turning upfield himself and running it and taking unnecessary hits, and I think that is something that he's capable of doing. Anybody that's not a believer in Lamar at this point, I think is just stubborn because I think he does have potential to be an elite quarterback in the NFL. So I think he can take the next step, but he has to actually do it. And so that's the big question mark.
Mm-hmm.
So who did they have on their team that was a volume receiver though?
They didn't have anybody.
Right. So I think that contributes a lot more to the lack of volume passing than the actual scheme or Lamar Jackson's abilities. I think that like Marquise Brown's a stellar player. Love Marquise Brown, but he's not that, 10 targets a game type of player. He's not the 10 to 15 target a game type of player. He's more of the, 4 to 5 receptions for, like 60 yards, 70 yards, and a touchdown, which is super valuable for an NFL team, and it's great for best ball. And he'll probably up his volume this year, but he's not a guy like Duvernay that you can put in the slot, have him run over the middle, make the easy catches, catch and run with it,
But like when you say they don't have any like volume receivers, I don't think like when I think of a passing offense, a team is going to pass a certain amount of times, whether they're passing to guys that can handle that volume or not. If you have the ideology of passing, you're gonna pass. They were dead last in the NFL in attempts last year, and part of that was probably being in the lead and having a good defense and things like that. But I think they were probably top of the league in terms of rushing attempts, because I think that's how their vision for their team was.
Absolutely. But if you have a team that has a very specific skill set in terms of wide receivers, and you're lacking the guys that you feel comfortable throwing 15 targets a game, like you're going to design your offense around that,
Mm-hmm.
Like think about it this way. Like if the Ravens had traded for DeAndre Hopkins as opposed to, and like, I'm not comparing Duvernay to Hopkins, so don't get pissed here. But if the Ravens had traded for DeAndre Hopkins, do you think that affects what they do on offense?
I mean, you could just put the name Jarvis Landry in there. That would affect the way that they do things on offense. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Sure. I think it's a balance of both.
Yeah.
You're going to throw the ball when you have to throw, but you're going to want to throw the ball more if you have guys that are capable of handling that type of workload.
You're also going to see some regression to that mean too. Then they're going to start throwing the ball more, because that's a big part of why they were being exploited in the playoffs. They know that's the next step in the evolution of their offense. And Duvernay being the guy they can feed. But the guy that makes me worried about Duvernay's ceiling is actually Brown, because I think that Brown could be serving in a lot of those similar routes. I don't think that Duvernay can do more in limited space, but I think that Brown could turn into probably see a target increase, and we'll see what happens when he takes off with it, which could hurt Duvernay. You know what I mean?
For me, I see Brown a lot more as an outside wide receiver that's going to stretch the field, take you deep, and then can catch those slant routes and run with them, right?
Right.
For me, Duvernay is going to be playing on the opposite side slot wide receiver, and he's going to be playing that middle of the field role. He's going to be going in motion. He's going to be running the quick outs, the button hooks, all that stuff in kind of the middle of the field. So to me, they're going to be operating in different spaces. And not only are they going to be operating in different spaces, but it's going to be different roles, where you're going to want to be setting up Marquise Brown in space where if you hit him with that quick slant, you don't have your slot wide receiver on that side of the field, because you want to open up as much space between the defenders and the wide receiver as possible so that he can get running. Duvernay, on the other hand, is much more of a broken tackle artist. And again, I bring up the Debo conversation here because I think he's built like a running back, and he can run those quick slants from the slot where he takes a hit and keeps running and stuff like that. Whereas Marquise Brown, you want to give him more space because he's not going to be taking those hits and keep running. You got to get him that slant in open space and then get him off to the races.
Yeah, for me, it was just a matter of volume, not necessarily in scheme. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Okay. And when you talk about it also in space, he's going to be in the similar space as Mark Andrews, though, too. You know what I mean? So that's the other thing to consider, too. Yeah, but Duvernay, obviously when we started off, I love Duvernay. I'm just saying that I think the meshing of the roles in the offense, especially when they've been so run heavy, I think it's going to take at least a year for that to kind of gel, especially in a weird camp year. You know?
Sure. I guess for me, I'm kind of looking at somewhere around 600 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's kind of what I'm looking at year one.
That's pretty nice for 2020.
I think so too, and I definitely think I'm being bold with that projection, but that's just like kind of how I see this playing out, and I think that the NFL is kind of starting to open up to those type of wide receivers that are like built like running backs. They run good routes and they operate over the middle well. I think that's something that they got away from for a while because those slot wide receivers were supposed to be these like undersized, quick twitch guys, and it's changed a little bit.
Yep, absolutely.
Andrew, you got anything else to add here?
No.
Are you sure?
Yes.
All right. Well, we're going to stop there. Next up on the docket is going to be Gabriel Davis on our next episode, going to Buffalo. And then, Andrew, who are we talking about after Gabriel Davis?
I thought it was Anthony Candy Goldshowers next.
Sure.
Spicy.
So you can find our written content at dynastyfootballdigest.com or at idpguys.org. You can find our video content at Writer Digest Network, spelled REITER. You can go to the websites to get a subscription where we have ADP, we have offensive and defensive ADP combined. We have rankings that are just insanely deep. We offer the rookie magazine there, which has forget how many pages it was, but the thing's insanely big and it's super well designed. Nate did a great job on it. So rookie magazine there's a offensive copy and a defensive copy, and then you can also order both there. And subscription also gives you access to our Slack channel where we have writers pretty much on the horn 24/7 answering any fantasy football questions you guys have. So, thanks for coming on this week, Todd. If you want, you got about 15 seconds to justify either your A.J. Dillon or your T. Higgins take.
A.J. Dillon could be the starter in 2021, and T. Higgins is a beast. Done.
All right. You will not be back.
I was given 15 seconds.
You will not be back on this podcast.
Thanks for listening. Dynasty Football Digest. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Nasty Nate, got you, homie. Good production right here. We the Digest Network.